Welcome to the next video in my Merchant Navy How-To series. In this video I'll be explaining how we can use the tide tables for a European secondary port. If you haven't already done so, I recommend you watch my earlier video covering European standard ports, as I am assuming you are already familiar with this process. All European secondary ports are referenced to a European standard port which has similar tidal characteristics. In the back of the tide tables you'll find numerous pages that look similar to what is shown here on the screen. These contain a list of all European secondary ports. Just be aware that there are two similar looking sets of pages at the back, so make sure you're using the correct ones, as the simplified harmonic data is not what we want to use here. For our example, we want to know the height of tide in Stranraer on the 22nd of February 2006 at 10 AM. Looking through our pages, we find the entry for Stranraer in the table and we make a note of its number, 414A. We then look up the table until we come to a port which is highlighted in bold. This is the standard port that the data is referenced to. Again, let's make a note of its number, 404. Now we turn to the standard port page for Greenock. We're looking for the height of tide at 10 AM, which falls somewhere between the first high water and low water on that day. As we did with our normal standard port calculation, we take these times and note them down. We also note down the value for height of tide as well. The table on your screen contains the numerous steps we have to go through in order to use the standard port graph to work out the height of tide. These steps are the same for all European secondary ports. The first row is the seasonal changes to heights of tide. This is where the port's number is required. Turning back to the list of secondary ports, usually at the bottom of one of the nearby pages, we'll find a small table as shown here. In getting the values from this table, you can either interpolate and round to one decimal place, or for speed, if the difference between consecutive months is 0.1, you can treat anything after the 15th of the month as the next month's value. Greenock is number 404, so we can take its correction value, which is 0, and enter it into the table. Since we're already at the correct page, we can also get the correction for Stranraer, which is negative 0.1, and enter it into the table too. We can now apply our corrections to the standard port values, and then we need to do some interpolation. As high water is occurring between midnight and 6 AM, we need to interpolate to get the appropriate time correction. The same applies for low water, which falls between midday and 6 PM. As our heights of tide are also different, we need to also interpolate for the high water value, as our low water value falls on the given mean low water neap figure of 1.0, so we can just take its value straight from the table. So after interpolating, we find our high water correction will be minus 25 minutes. In the case of the low water, we don't need to actually interpolate, as the correction is the same for both times, so our correction is minus 10 minutes. For the heights of tide, we also don't need to actually do any calculation. As the high water figure we have is beyond the range in the table, we just use minus 0.1, and the low water value we just read straight out of the table. Once we fill this information into our calculation, we can then complete the remaining steps. To clarify, what we have worked out is that high water at Stranraer will occur at 5:33 AM and low water will be at 11:57 AM. The height of tide at high water will be 2.5 meters and 0.9 meters at low water. We're almost ready to turn to the graph. Before we do so though, we need to know the tidal range. As the graph is for the standard port, we use its tidal range, so in our case the difference between 2.7 and 1.0 meters, which is 1.7 meters. When we check the graph, we see that the neap's curve is based on a range of 1.9 meters. As our tidal range is out with the neap and spring range, we don't need to interpolate. We just use the neap's curve, which I've highlighted in yellow. Taking our graph, we first mark our tidal range line. Our low water value was 0.9 meters and high water value was 2.5 meters, so we can draw our line between these 2 points. We can also fill in the time of high water, and to make things easier for us, we'll fill in the other boxes too. We want to know the height of tide at 10 AM, so we can draw a line up from 10 AM until it intercepts the neap curve. We then draw across until we hit the tidal range line, and then read off the value either at the top or bottom of the graph. In our case, we find that the height of tide at 10 AM on the 22nd of February 2006 was 1.3 meters. I hope you found this short video useful and not too confusing. Be sure to check out my other how-to videos and click like and subscribe to my channel to be notified when I post other tutorials. Until next time, safe sailing.